What's going on, guys? It's Clark Taylor from Wrestling Republic. We're back with another edition of the daily broadcast live on YouTube. It's noon here on the West Coast on a nice Friday morning. I guess noon makes it not morning anymore, but it's Friday the 13th. Unlucky Friday the 13th, January 2023. Unlucky or lucky, depending on how you look at it. You know, it is what it is, but I'm here with two of my esteemed colleagues. Number one, Anthony Ricciardi, head of opinions, the man, the myth, the legend, emanating live from Philly. How you been today, Anthony?
Been better. A little under the weather, but I'll gut it out.
He's got a little tickle in his throat, guys, so give him a break today. If you're out in the audience and you're wondering if Anthony's, muting or doing anything like that, he's got a little tickle in his throat, and that's something nobody wants to deal with. Nobody likes to be sick, but he's ready. He's ready. He's locked and loaded, just like our producer, Kobe Galanzowski, super producer, also head of reviewing. How you doing this morning?
Well, I'm back for the weekend. Daily broadcast might miss me during the week, but I'm back now.
He's a weekend warrior, as we like to call him in the old golf industry. No doubt. We got a fun list of topics today. A ton of wrestling on tap. We're eventually going to get to Impact because I know Anthony's got more insight than anybody I know on this pay-per-view because it's a good one that's been well built. But the first topic of this broadcast, CM Punk comments on MJF's post where he appeared to have put tape over CM Punk's name on his award that he received. Now, what would we expect from MJF besides something that funny? I think the interesting part is obviously Punk leaving the comment, which was, Kobe, do you have that comment ready?
Yeah, I got the comment.
Do you know exactly what he said?
Just to say it, yeah, he took a picture with his Pro Wrestling Illustrated plaques, and he had tape. He put tape over CM Punk's name, and it was voted Feud of the Year with 27 votes for PWI, or 27% of the votes for PWI. CM Punk's comment on MJF's actual post was maybe find some tape for the ratings so nobody sees those either. And I guess just for context, if you aren't aware of it, the ratings for AEW aren't off the charts. They are at a kind of general standpoint of you're gonna get at least 800. You're on a good Dynamite, you'll get in the 900s like like Wednesday night. And then they are really struggling to hit that 1 million. It's become a meme, blah, blah, blah. But so that's kind of the joke is everyone thinks of MJF being the top star of the company, being he's the best heel in the business at the moment next to someone like Roman Reigns. But the ratings aren't really showing it. So
absolutely. And
what do you got for a question, Clark?
So here is my big question, and I really want to toss it to Anthony. Do you think this is a scenario where CM Punk's kind of playing all of us? I know it's not a complete flip or anything, but maybe he would make a comment like that. It doesn't seem like a comment to me, so this is kind of a nuanced question. It's not necessarily a great one, but I think the discussion is going to be fun anyway. Mm-hmm. Do you think he would make that comment if he didn't at least think there was a chance he was coming back?
I mean, Punk has been notorious for rallying up the wrestling audience. So, I mean, it really could go either way. I mean, technically he is under contract at AEW. So in theory, he could return. Him and Max obviously do have history, which I don't know whether or not it's all storyline heat or legitimate or not. I think it's kind of odd that if the plaques actually have the percentages on them, which is that correct, Kobe? The plaques actually had the percentages on them?
It's hard to tell because of just the lighting. Mm-hmm. But the image, he put two images, him with taking the photo of the plaque, and then it was like the PW Insider post of like, oh, Feud of the Year. I guess you could say it was what it was in the actual magazine.
Okay, yeah.
So,
I just in general, if the percentages are on the plaque,
I don't think so.
That would be really weird to me.
Yeah.
He also won Most Hated Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, as far as and MJF doing, covering up Punk's thing, that just fits the MJF character. As far as TV ratings, it's not like the AEW ratings were going through the roof with Punk there, other than his initial return. I mean, that was one of the criticisms I think Bischoff had, that, Punk's supposed to be this big draw and they're barely getting 1 million viewers or close to it. So, I mean, AEW's been having that problem for a while, where it's the bulk of their core audience plus, wrestling fans that'll watch any type of wrestling like us.
Right.
So, I mean, and WWE's been having that problem too. It's pretty much the core. This is it. The casual viewer is not really watching like they were during the Attitude Era or the Monday Night War era. So, I mean, what's there is what's there. And pretty much at this point, both companies and all of wrestling are trying to just maintain what they have. If they can build an audience, great. But right now, they're all struggling when it comes to TV ratings, because there's competition both in wrestling, out of wrestling, and people's attention spans.
And I totally agree. And I did find another one really interesting, kind of the point you made at the end there about both companies are trying to maintain. It does feel a bit like around 2019 after All In, it became an arms race. And then we went through a small phase where we had wrestlers cut from the WWE roster for budget cuts, likely preparing for a sale and whatnot, right? As we've discussed, it does feel now a bit more like, instead of an arms race, almost like they're just trying to hang on to ammunition, metaphorically, right? Like
absolutely.
They're just trying to make sure that you can measure up to the rest of the industry when it comes to your roster build, your main stars, your mid card, and your lower card. And I find that's where I think this whole, with the Punk comment, as much as he's always been willing to speak his mind and do all of those things, that one in particular to me was another one that made me think, maybe behind the scenes, some things have been smoothed over in a way that we didn't necessarily expect, because I also could see that type of a comment ruffling feathers in the locker room. And at the same time, I don't necessarily think there's a reason for him to make such a comment if he has no desire to return.
I mean, honestly, if he did come back, I really would find it hard to believe that all the people involved were all willing to put their egos aside, because personally, I think all the ones that are involved with this aren't the type to go, yeah, let's put it aside and let's do business. There's too many people involved with this. If he came in for MJF and that was the swan song, that I could totally see. I don't see him in the ring with Kenny or Hangman or the Bucks. I mean, that's money if they're able to do it. I just don't think all the people involved are going to be willing to put all of their bad blood aside and do business. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I just don't think I am.
That I totally get, right? I mean, we've seen other instances in the industry of people that have, kind of talked their way out of being able to go gain a water under the bridge type scenario, right? Like we've seen people talk their way out of being able to mend fences.
I mean, the most obvious one is Edge and Matt Hardy with the whole Lita triangle.
I think that would be the example.
I mean,
on the other end, though, right?
That's the go-to. But in that instance, you're talking about really Edge and Matt willing to put that aside, and Lita to a degree as well.
Yeah.
But in this, it's Kenny, it's the Bucks, it's Hangman, it's Punk, it's whatever way the locker room was divided. I mean, there's been allegations with Jericho being he's not coming back.
Right.
Who knows how divided that locker room was? Because I mean, there's been different reports of how divided it was. That Punk didn't have that many friends. Other ones saying he did. It's a mess. So it's it's not only the core people that we were thinking of, the Elite and Punk, putting whatever issues aside. There's also the issues in the locker room too. So it's going to be very tricky for it to, and it's stuff that we don't know about. Honestly, we don't. We can speculate, we can guess, but quite frankly, I just think it's a long shot if it happens.
Definitely. Kobe, do you have any thoughts on the situation yourself, by the way?
Like, I mean, that's the thing is I take the question you gave us about, like, him making the comment, does that signify anything? And I think I think Punk making the comment, like, on the surface level, you can look at it, that's him being pissed about the situation. He's injured, but two, he's out of the company, he's out of the locker room. You can kind of say he's an outcast at this point, because there's only going to be the certain people that are friends with him. Like, I'm not going to say Dax Harwood's wrong for having his opinion, but Dax Harwood recently spoke about his experiences, about the coffee, all that, and I like that. Punk seems like like the type of guy to make the effort with the people who are wanting his help. There's that's the thing. There's obvious that the divide. Well, there's the AEW style, and then there's the Punk style. Like there's the clear differences and all that, but I don't know if that means anything. Like on the surface level, this is him making the comment because he's sour. Is that the reality? I have no clue.
Right.
You have no clue. Anthony has no clue either.
Yeah, on that one. That is a really excellent point, Kobe.
Well, I mean, a lot of that, and I said this when I wrote about it.
On there, yeah.
When it happened, a lot of this could have been taken care of when this originally started. If Hangman went off script in that promo, that thing should have been resolved backstage right after that. It dragged out and got worse and worse until it finally blew up. And that ultimately falls on the people. That falls on Punk. It falls on Hangman. It falls on Tony for running the company. Like these are things that like we all saw that clearly there's an issue. So, I get it. You don't want to get involved. That's where the problem. It could have been resolved a lot sooner, in my opinion. Now, granted, I
totally hear where you're coming from too.
Just from a fan perspective, it should not have escalated to the degree that it got to if this was resolved sooner. That's just my thought.
I totally hear where you're coming from, and I don't want to extend this one or whatever because we got other topics to move on to. But I will also say I'm in complete agreement on that needed to be solved when the initial Hangman thing happened, way before the All Out stuff happened.
Correct.
But now that we're here, I will also say time does have an ability to heal some things. And that is why I do think now, by comparison to September of 22, there is still a chance, but I absolutely hear your points about how big of a mountain it is to climb from a not public relations.
It ultimately comes down to personalities and egos if they're willing to put that aside. I hope they are, but quite frankly, I have doubts.
Did you just one hand catch that paper, by the way, Kobe? That was a slick play. I think I saw that.
No, I didn't catch it.
It looked like you one hand snagged it, by the way. I'm sorry. I was going to say plays of the week on air. That might have been the play of the week.
That's a Mr. Perfect.
It looked slick, or either he just let it go, but not the point. Moving along to the next topic. We've got the SmackDown preview for tonight. And sorry to put you on the spot, Kobe, but I'm like, we know the two matches we've kind of talked about, but you want to break down, you watch more SmackDown than anybody, I think, in this group. Not that we don't watch week to week, but Kobe knows what's up. And so you want to break us down.
Kobe looks at the previews. I don't.
What are we going to see tonight?
Well, no, I don't. I know this is happening just based on watching. And this is something we can do quick and easy, but I'll just to preview it myself, I can. Anthony and Clark can attest to this, is when I knew this was the direction that they were going to set up Gunther versus Braun Strowman, I said it was clear that the World Cup winner was going to be not transitional, but a stepping stone to this rivalry. And I feared that because Gunther versus Ricochet was a phenomenal contest. It was a phenomenal match on the show. Does this live up? I have no clue. This kind of shapes the direction, because if Gunther goes over, who like, what's next? Who's next? Like, is there a Lashley involved? Is there a Brock Lesnar involved? Who actually knows at that point? Of course, there's the rumors. I'm not you can believe that if you want, but I don't know what's next. But then again, well, there's two questions that come after this. If Braun Strowman wins, what's next for Strowman? Mm-hmm. Is he gonna turn heel on Ricochet based on the championship or something like that? But then again, what's next for Gunther? Because Gunther brought prestige to the Intercontinental Championship with this championship reign, and it was the shot in the arm that the championship needed. So
I couldn't agree more on that.
As a quick thing, I think Gunther's going to win, but we can all share our opinions and then move on.
Let's do that for sure. And I loved the point you made about where do they go from here, because in my opinion, I don't think you can let Gunther lose, because then it kind of it sweeps the rug out from under how dominant he's been as an Intercontinental Champion. He's really been pushed as equally as dominant as he was pushed in both Progress and NXT as Walter, and with Imperium, where he is an unbeatable force, and it's brought new life to the IC title. It blows my mind. If it was Gunther carrying the IC title on the top of the card on Raw, I may not have my complaints about that show, and I'm not even trying to get into that topic. By relation to the US title, and that's no offense to Theory or Rollins, to be honest, but the way that he's been so dominant, he's such an insurmountable, unstoppable force, right? That kind of, and this is anytime you get a guy the size of Braun Strowman, the size of Gunther's got the grappling acumen and can not quite match the size, but he's up there. Braun has the brute strength. It's classic technique versus athleticism. It's classic unmovable object, unstoppable force. I am excited about the matchup. I've never been the biggest Braun in-ring fan, but I absolutely understand his merit as a former World's Strongest Man. My hope is that they do not put themselves in a position similarly to when they had Braun and Omos at Crown Jewel. I thought that match was shockingly incredible. Braun got his butt whipped for 5 to 8 minutes and then hit one power slam, and that was enough to put away Omos. I hope that the plan isn't to have Gunther dominate offensively for a long stretch, Braun hits a power slam or whatever it is and puts him away, and they make that title change, because I think they have something so special with this run for Gunther. But I'm super curious as to what your thoughts are, Anthony.
I mean, I've always been a big proponent I like long title reigns, especially if you do them correctly. The person that beats you should get made. Both guys should be made in long title reigns. It should bring value to the title. It should bring value to the person holding it and the person who eventually wins the title. Honestly, Gunther should keep the belt. I would not put it on Braun. Honestly, I just wouldn't. I don't know who you eventually have beat Gunther. I would not be opposed, and I don't know what the record is. I don't know, but Honky Tonk Man's record. I believe he's
so many days.
I believe he's still the longest reign, right?
I think so. Yes.
I would not be opposed to Gunther breaking that record, to be honest. Whether they bring somebody up from NXT or let's say a Jay White comes in. We've seen Gunther / Walter, whatever you want to call him, have a long reign and with the NXT UK title, and Dragunov beat him, and it was a big deal because he dethroned the unstoppable champion. I'd love to see that again with the IC title. The IC title was known as the workhorse title. Just do it. I'd rather it be somebody, whether it be a Ricochet, somebody from an underdog, beating the unbeatable champion as opposed to Braun beating him. I really would like to see Gunther keep the belt for a long time, to be honest.
Okay, and then so Honky Tonk's at 454 days.
Okay.
And
454,
Gunther
man.
454. And
It's a little more than a year.
Yeah,
almost 2
and
years.
now Gunther is at 217.
All right, so it's
So he's
that's
roughly
not too bad.
halfway.
He's halfway there.
He's threatening
Yeah.
at the least. We could say he's threatening.
No, I just think that would be the smart play.
And so I also think to your point earlier, not to cut you off there, but like to your point earlier, and then Kobe made a similar point about the Ricochet match. Do you think also that Gunther works better with small guys? By the way, before you even answer that, I am under that impression. The bait matches, the Dragunov matches, Ricochet, as we just saw, it just works. He knows what he's doing in that setting.
He knows his role in a lot of ways, and I'm not saying it's exactly like it, but if you look at like a feud like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, Shawn loved working with Taker or bigger guys because he loved working that underneath thing. Taker got it, understood the David versus Goliath type dynamic. I think Gunther's the same way. So like for a match with him and Ricochet or him and Dragunov, it's a bigger deal. And I think it's an overall better match.
Right.
As opposed to him and Sheamus, it's just them beating the living daylights out of one another.
That was a slugfest, and that was amazing.
And it's phenomenal. And it has its place. But if you're looking at a match where it's, rooting for an underdog, I like those matches more.
Same.
So for me, like Ricochet and Gunther, I really enjoyed that. For me, that was a match when it was advertised. I have way more interest in that as opposed to Gunther and Braun. And
even further to your point, like as big as Sheamus is, and we consider him a big guy and a stiff worker, his agility level and athleticism.
Oh, absolutely. For his size.
Not pure athleticism. Braun Strowman's strength and brute strength and power is on another planet, right? That Sheamus can't match. But from agility and speed level, he can actually at least put some of the things that you see when you get the small guy working, I don't want to say around Gunther, but working with Gunther in a big match.
Yeah.
Sheamus was able to do some of those things. He for a guy that's 6'6", 250 pounds, he moves like a smaller man for sure. And I think that was helpful in that match being as well received as it was. I'm not even sure. I mean, we've given Sheamus plenty of credit, but I'm not even sure we've given Gunther enough credit, because that's another adjustment to have a guy your height, probably your strength and explosiveness level, and still be able to work a match that stiff. Yes, you don't have the high spots of the small guy versus Gunther, but I got to give Gunther credit. He did handle that rivalry.
Gunther is one of those performers, and I don't think he gets enough credit in the sense that he can work so many different styles with people. He can have a great match with a Ricochet. He can have a phenomenal match with a Sheamus. He's very underrated as one of those type of performers that can have a great match with anybody. He really is.
Absolutely. And okay, so I want to hear, Kobe, your take on, so we didn't even give our full picks, but I'm going to be clear. Mine's Gunther. I'm pretty sure Anthony's is Gunther. So Kobe, if you want to give your take and your pick, just let us get going, and then we'll move on.
I kicked it off saying it was Gunther.
You got Gunther too? Okay, we're 3 for 3 on Gunther. So let's move on to the main event.
This time I think we're right, because the last time we gave a prediction, we all
we're either all right or all wrong.
Hysterical. We all went
Osprey the last time, and we know that went wrong, but I don't think it's going wrong this time.
So it's probably
that was a booking mistake, and I would think this won't be too. But that's just my take. What do I know?
Okay, so let's move on to the main event, which is, I think, the one. I mean, we've seen the match a bazillion times, and it hardly ever gets old. But Kobe, you want to introduce that main event for us?
I can, if you want. So so Roman Reigns is getting Sami Zayn to prove himself again. And we've seen this too many. I don't want to say we've seen this too many times, but we've seen it. He became the honorary Uce. He proved himself in War Games. He's still the honorary Uce. So, I don't know if there's that next level for Sami Zayn in the bloodline, or if there is any, because I know they teased it as, he'll become Sami Uso as a joke. I'll say this again. This match is a stepping stone. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn is on the way to the Royal Rumble, which is Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns. Will this match deliver? It always is going to deliver because it's Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. These guys are destined to wrestle together. That's wrestle together, wrestle forever. You're not going to get a bad match. There's people like Gargano Ciampa. There's people like Sheamus and Drew McIntyre who have that appeal to them as two men in a singles match. I mean, I got Kevin Owens winning. I don't think Sami wins because then that throws it off on the road to the Rumble.
It does hurt the storyline
because he's coming to fight Roman.
It does hurt the storyline for sure. I agree with you. If Kevin takes the loss clean, especially. Anthony, what's your thoughts on this main event?
I mean, Kevin and Sami. I don't think they can have a bad match against one another. In wrestling, best friends tend to make the best rivals. Shawn and Hunter, I mean, Ciampa and Gargano, Kevin and Sami. It's just natural. Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly is another one that I just thought of. Right. But I expect a great match. The one thing I don't know with this, I don't know if it's going to be a clean finish or I don't know. They can really kind of go either way. As far as Sami, it would not shock me that the eventual turn that takes place on Sami is almost like a duplicate of the Honorary Uce, although it's not going to have a happy ending for Sami this time around. That's kind of where I'm thinking they're going to do it. So it would not shock me if I think it can go either way. I mean, Kevin, I understand why they would make him win, but I don't know where that puts Sami at that point too. Because I guess if Sami loses, then Sami helps Roman retain at the Rumble to try to, win his, spot back or get back in the good graces with the tribal chief. I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go with this particular match. And this whole storyline, the compelling part is you really don't know where it's going. You think you do, and then they throw a curve. So who knows, really?
So to your point on that, you don't think it's where you're going. And I had a completely different thing to say, but I actually thought of this. I'm a weirdo that likes to fantasy book all the time. And I did think of this as an idea for how they could go about this and kind of solve all the problems. And so before I make my pick on what's actually going to happen, I'll throw out that scenario. I think it would make a heck of a lot of sense for this to be a muddy finish where other members of the bloodline hurt Kevin Owens during the match, maybe with a referee down, and Sami wins, but then shows concern for Kevin's safety as the match ends.
Covering the bases.
And I think is the route they have to go. Yeah. Is maybe Solo hits him with a Samoan spike and he's unconscious somehow or really hurt. And so Sami does pin him because maybe Sami doesn't see the spike. But then when the match ends, instead of celebrating with the rest of the bloodline, Sami's a little worried about Kevin.
Even post-match, maybe they beat him down more and he pulls them off or goes, that's enough.
Or says, that's enough.
Yeah, something.
I think that is the most logical direction for tonight, yes. Personally. That's the way I see it. Sort of, you can kind of cover everything, but also...
I agree with you. I think that's how you play it out. I think that's how you should play it out.
Yeah. Because I really did think about it makes a heck of a lot of sense to have Kevin Owens hit the stunner, pin him clean in the middle of the ring. If that along the way to the Rumble, you're still going to tell the Sami's in the doghouse story, which I think they teased, but Sami's not in the doghouse yet. Roman said sorry. Whether we thought he meant it or not, Roman said sorry.
Again, another swerve that we don't. That's the great part about this angle is you think and everyone's speculating. Oh, it's going to be the Usos and KO and Sami. They're gonna dethrone them with the tag titles. None of us had Sami as an honorary Uso. None of us had the War Games.
That's where I think the brilliance of this, to your point, even further. So think about the popcorn angle, right?
Yeah.
We don't even remember the popcorn angle started with Roman apologizing. I mean, not that we don't remember, we remember, but like the first one is how funny was the popcorn thing? The way they've layered the entertainment value for the promo stuff with the storyline, is so brilliant because every single week we have to talk about this story. Not have to, want to.
Absolutely.
But every single week we talk about this story, we talk about they could do this, they could do that, they could do this. And they keep doing this or that or this, and they don't do all of the ideas that get presented.
Yeah.
But whichever one they go with leads to another. They could do this, they could do that, they could do this.
I think
it's very, very, very well thought out. It's really, really something we haven't seen in wrestling in a long time.
One of the best parts of that is we've been watching a very long time.
Oh, a
very, very long time. You and I have been watching a very long time.
I mean, I think between even giving Kobe, between the three of us, I think we have 55 years of watching.
Yeah, I mean, so when we're able to be surprised and not know where it's going, I love that stuff.
Same.
Not knowing, you think you know, but you really don't. That's the best stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this whole angle has been so compelling, because of the layers and because of the people involved, whether it's, the Jey Uso being jealous at Sammy, whether it's Sammy doing what Sammy does best, whether it's Paul Heyman doing the facial reactions in the background. It's just, there's all these little things that are thrown in that has made this the most compelling angle in wrestling right now. Really.
No doubt. And I am in total agreement there. And I was just going to ask Kobe, I know, so I feel like I kind of ruined the picks thing with my fantasy booking scenario there, but my pick would be Sami Zayn, not clean. I think, Anthony, did you give an official pick?
I like what you said. I could see Sammy going over instead of Kevin, to be honest.
And then yes, Kobe, I'm not even trying to put you on the spot here, but like now that we've really talked it through, you still going Kevin? You on the fence? How do you feel?
I still think they're going Kevin because, I mean, like, because we can make the callback, and we talked about us as like, how would we do the biggest SmackDown match of the year last year, and we talked about it where you and Allison, and I think it was just us three at the time, we're all team Roman Sammy, and I said as much as it's the easiest move, I don't want to say it made the most sense but I was on team Cena and Kevin. Right. I mean, childhood.
No, you called it. You were spot on that. I knew
that was kind of the direction they were going to go with.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think you can do Sammy winning unless he. What's the word?
Unless it's not clean, right? Unless it's like
unless it's not clean, but unless he wins. Well, I guess. He wins without even knowing it. Like he could take, he could take a stunner. The ref could get knocked out or pulled out of the ring, and then he could just be thrown or pulled over Kevin for the win, and then he gets the shocking. I don't think it happens. I think Kevin gets the win. Whether another mishap happens, like maybe Jey Uso's holding Kevin on against the ropes and instead of in the corner, but on the ropes.
Sammy gets haluva kick.
Sammy gets haluva kick on Jay, or even Sikoa, or something like that. I think that's more likely. And then Kevin gets the big pop because that happened, and then he gets advantage, a stunner, whatever, or a pop-up powerbomb. I'd like to see a pop-up powerbomb win from him on Sammy because of their history. But I still think Kevin goes over because it's not the hardest or more complex way, but it makes sense still.
Okay, to be totally honest, I'm super glad you said that, because what I didn't want to do is go through another round of picks and all of us agree for like the fourth time this week. So we needed that so bad, no matter what. And you made a bunch of great points. So I want you to know, Kobe, I'm like, you didn't flip me. I still think that Sammy's going to do the muddy finish, but I totally hear where you're coming from, and it's spot on analysis there. Let's move on to our final topic of the day, though, and this is a fun one. Anthony is our resident Impact expert. He watches more than anybody. I watch as much as I can and listen to Busted Open as much as I can. I know Kobe watches all wrestling all over the world, and he's the stat guy. And when I say that, I mean that as in he's the stat guy. Like, Kobe's the stat guy. But nobody knows more about this pay-per-view or Impact than Anthony Ricciardi. So I want to ask you, what are your thoughts heading in? We'll get to the Mickey James main event stuff later, but the undercard, how do you feel about the rest of it?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, Impact is, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Impact has this tarnished reputation for years of, just bad booking and bad management over the years. But the Impact product itself has been really good over the past. I've been watching consistently for the past year, or past 2 years. But the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, they've built it up incredibly well. Bully Ray, he's doing his best work. Some of his, I mean, he's done
arguably ever.
Yeah, he's doing phenomenal work. Josh Alexander is arguably the most underrated world champion in the business. I would put him number 2 behind Roman at this point. Honestly,
Roman's not underrated. I think he's the most. I think
Josh
is underrated. Oh, you mean like
believability?
Okay. I got confused there. I'm like, Roman's not underrated. Josh
no. But as far as like believability,
yes, no, I totally hear you.
Title defenses. The only reason I'm not considering MJF in here is only because he really hasn't had the belt very long. But Josh has been carrying Impact on his back, same way Roman carries WWE on his. So. The whole angle has been very well done. And then you have the Mickey James scenario where she pretty much said, almost like the Ric Flair type gimmick when WWE was retiring him. Oh, if I lose my next match, I'm done. So it led to her against Jordynne Grace for the title. It's essentially, I believe it's title versus career, if I'm not mistaken, Cope, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. So everyone kind of expects. Everyone kind of expects. Okay, Mickey may be losing this and going back to WWE because there's been rumors that WWE wants her back, whether as a producer or whatever. We may have a repeat of her being in the Rumble again, possibly with the Impact title again. I don't know, but it's a really solid card from top to bottom. So I'll definitely be watching tonight, despite the fact that I'm a little under the weather. I'm going to try to cut it out and watch it. We'll see what happens.
I'll be joining you. Don't worry.
Yeah,
we will be. But I would also say, even to your point, you made earlier about Impact over the last few years, I think creatively, industry wide, despite lesser resources, smaller buildings, the creative direction in Impact has been so sensible. Like it makes sense. Thank you. There we go. It makes sense. They do stuff that adds up. They tell stories start to finish. They don't abandon a story if early it's bad or not bad, or early it gets a little like, what are they doing with this? Right? They don't just bail on you. And I think the creative has been, and testament to Tommy Dreamer, he often talks about the influence he has on the show on Busted Open. And it really is. He deserves a ton of credit. I know he's done a great job. Bully has done an amazing job. I'm excited for this card. I'm excited the interaction that they had was amazing. Bully and Alexander, I think, is going to be as fun as could be. Kobe, do you have a pick in that match? Who do you think Bully wins the world title?
If you want to know my pick, I can go over it. I think it's very hard.
Just in that one.
Oh yeah. Just in the opening contest, which they made official as Josh Alexander versus Bully Ray, which
the opener.
Interesting, but I love it. It's a hot match. It's a hot rivalry. Do I see Bully Ray winning a world title in the year 2023? You can go ha because he won it in 2013 from Jeff Hardy at Lockdown, kind of almost 10 years to the day, right? I don't think by a couple months. I don't think it's going to happen just because, like Anthony said, Josh Alexander is carrying this company on his back. Josh Alexander's doing a phenomenal job. He's being that top champion that can work with a Black Taurus, a Tomohiro Ishii, a Mike Bailey, an Eddie Edwards, an Eric Young. Who else has he faced? I think he, at a point,
Kazarian was a phenomenal.
Did you say Moose?
He beat
Moose.
Moose. He did. I guess he did defend against Moose.
I thought the Moose match was actually underrated. That was a bell-to-bell monster of a match.
Moose was
100%.
an underrated champion too.
Yeah.
Moose carried the title right.
Yeah.
He carried it. I don't want to say with respect, but he carried it with prestige.
It mattered.
Josh Alexander, exactly, it mattered. Josh Alexander's doing the same thing, and I don't think Impact's going to take that step back or the step backwards instead of step forwards in that sense. So I don't see Bully Ray winning.
Totally.
I wouldn't be mad about it, but I don't.
I think the biggest question is how long Bully signed to be with Impact. I think that would make a difference. I could see him coming in, giving back, and doing the honors of having Josh beat him to help elevate, him. I could also see Bully, if he did sign a longer term deal, to win the title and Josh eventually regaining it. I could see them doing either way. I think it depends on whether or not Bully's going to be there longer.
So who's your pick? Put your name on one.
I'm going to put Josh Alexander.
Okay, and I'm going to make it 3 for 3, unfortunately, and go Josh as well. I actually, you know what? For continuity, I'm going with my boy Bully. I changed my mind mid-thought there. I'll take Bully. We'll make it 2-1 that way. It's more fun anyway, and I love Bully Ray.
I would not be opposed to Bully winning it.
I'm going to say
really
Bully.
I'm fine with either guy.
I think Bully gets it. I'm 50-50, but I think Bully wins. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. I think there's something to think about as well. Is Bully Ray's mentioned it before, and he never, and this is when he talked about, are you retired? And I don't want to say, I don't know the exact quote, exactly how he worded it, but in terms of a paraphrasing mode, he said it as I'm not retired, but I'm not just going to work to work.
Right.
I want the right story. He wants to come back for the right story, the right.
So putting Josh over would be a great story, especially because
it would be a great story. But I want to see if that was the case of Bully wins it back, Josh wins it back, Rebellion or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that takes away prestige because right now we talk about Josh Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony mentioned long range.
I didn't think of it that way.
Josh Alexander is the longest reigning Impact World Champion of all time right now. That's a massive achievement for him to drop it and then just regain it. I think that takes away prestige from this championship reign.
Yeah, well,
so that's another angle to look at.
The interesting part is obviously that's the Impact World title. I don't believe that counts the NWA years with Jarrett's long reigns. I don't think that includes any of that. I think that's just Impact. I think that'd be separate title. That'd be separate thing. But yeah, I think Bully, really respects what Josh has done.
Wikipedia accounts from when Kurt won it in 2007.
That's the Impact title. Yeah, that's when they broke away from the NWA.
Yes, that's when they.
Yeah, it counts from there. Yeah,
so technically different titles.
Any of the Jarrett reigns because that was all NWA.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's one of those. You can't lose, and whichever guy you pick, I think they could make it believable, but Josh would be the logical choice because Josh is the flagship of that company.
Right.
I think whoever beats Josh needs to be a homegrown Impact person, whether it's Ace Austin, whether it's Chris Bay. I think it needs to be somebody that you want to make. So I think either one of those guys could beat Josh at some point. They may do Bailey because they already did the 1 hour match with the two of them.
I'm in agreement that it's got to be more meaningful than necessarily what we're dealing with. We're a little pressed for time. Let's move on to the main event because this is a big one, and I did want to squeeze this in before we go off. Normally, we're more than just a little pressed for time. We're at the 45 mark, but we're not cutting. You get 10 extra minutes, maybe 8. Who knows? Depends on how long we talk about it. But Mickie James and Jordan Grace main event, last rodeo, retirement versus belt. And I want to hear both your thoughts on this one because I'm a lifelong Mickie James fan. As far as, I thought what she did with Trish was brilliant. It was one of the first great women's rivalries in my childhood growing up. And listening to her on SiriusXM, how could you not love Mickie James? She's one of the most easy to like, respectable people I've ever heard in wrestling, and her resume speaks for itself. Excited about the match, but definitely want to hear both you guys' thoughts. Anthony, you want to go first out of the gates?
Yeah. Mickie is one of those performers, and I wrote about Mickie when she was in the Rumble last year. She is very underrated in the sense of, it's always Trish and Lita. It was always Trish and Lita during that era. But the Trish-Mickie rivalry was so good as well. But it's one of those things that I don't think she got the credit she deserved. And especially when you look back at her career now, how successful she's been, one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time.
Easy.
I do see her, I'll give my pick now. I do see her doing the honors and losing to Jordan and get Jordan more over. I think Mickie probably will go to WWE. I don't know whether or not she's going to wrestle or just work backstage, assuming, I think Hunter's always been a fan of hers. He brought her in NXT and that the main roster spot. It would not shock me if we see Mickie and her husband, Nick Aldis, in WWE in 2023, to be honest. I could see it, but could Mickie be in the Rumble again? Maybe. I could see that. But I think it's going to be a hell of a match. Jordan's really stepped up for the women's division. I mean, that's the interesting part. Impact has a small roster. I don't think any company has had more turnover in talent at the top of the card in its 20-year career in the industry and still able to reinvent itself that many times. There's no logical reason why Impact is still in business.
It's still afloat.
When you look at like the insane things that were done over the years, insane. They've been dropped from multiple TV networks. They're still alive.
Sold like 5 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's really is amazing. And at one time, I think somebody described it, and I might have been the one that said it to somebody. I'm like, at one time, Impact was like the cockroach of the industry. Like it can't be killed. It's the zombie promotion, but they're putting together some of the best wrestling that unfortunately not a lot of fans are watching. And it's a shame because it is a really good product. And at times it's better than the big two at certain weeks. So that's the sad part, is that they've gotten their act together, but the audience isn't there.
I hear you there. And so you've got Jordan Grace going over tonight, and
Yes.
it's the last match of Mickie's career. Okay, Kobe, I want to hear your pick too. We're up against the time, but bring the heat, baby.
We're up against the time, but I do want to kind of piggy off of what Anthony said. Is it's always Trish versus Lita, and Trish versus Mickie is a thing, but she's remembered because of that image. I'm not going to do it. You know the image if you've known.
Oh
that
no,
match.
the
You
worst
know the
storyline,
match.
and unfortunately
But,
that is unfair to her, I think.
Exactly. It's unfair to her. But like the thing is I look at things at a different perspective because of my, I don't want to say absence of wrestling knowledge.
I would say youth.
But I've been, my youth. I've been a fan for 11 years. I haven't been watching for all of the years I've been alive, but I've been watching for, well, now
all the years you could.
50%, more than 50% at this point.
You took advantage of the ones you had the choice to.
People don't give Mickie James the credit of that, but people don't give Mickie James the credit for being one of the, I don't want to say the founding
Founding mothers.
Yeah, I could have went that way with
the founding mothers.
Founding mothers. But she was one of those founding figures of the Knockouts division. And
Very
as someone
true.
who watched TNA like a year after I started watching WWE, it wasn't like, oh, I only knew WWE for that long. No, I knew. And I knew Mickie James as Hardcore Country.
Mm-hmm.
I also knew her because based on the wrestling games, I know they did the Piggy James stuff in the video game the one year.
Right.
I can't remember which one exactly. But I know her. I knew her as Hardcore Country, and it's like, oh yeah, she went to WWE in the past. And I think that's the thing, is she doesn't give enough credit because she's been such a key figure as someone who has worked with, at this point, 3 women's generations. You have the 2000s, the late 2000s to 2015 in the Divas era, and then you have now, which is the women's revolution.
Right. Well, and to your point, even she had her hands on NWA Empower.
She had it. Well, exactly.
Correctly.
Like
to your point, it's so easy to overlook.
Legacy.
Yeah, like key parts of her resume.
Yes, there's a lot of things that Mickie James has in her legacy, but if it was interesting for her to go over Deonna Purrazzo during this run, which was interesting because I don't want to say it threw Deonna off skew, but Deonna's, I don't want to say she's not the same either, but Deonna's not the top of the card anymore.
Right.
And Jordynne Grace was the one woman going into the Queen of the Mountain that nobody was betting on Jordynne Grace.
No. In a lot of ways, she surprised people like Josh Alexander. In a lot of ways,
she surprised everyone. Yeah. Well, Josh Alexander knew. Everyone knew Josh Alexander had the talent. Nobody knew Jordynne Grace was going to get the championship run in this time, but no one would say she had the run because she had good matches with Mia Yim, Masha Slamovich, who's becoming a top star in the wrestling independents.
Masha's on fire.
But Jordynne, I don't want that to happen to Jordynne Grace as well, where Jordynne's momentum goes off askew again. She's
halted by the nature of Mickie's run
this time, and I don't know who beats Jordynne Grace if it's not Deonna Purrazzo, but I don't know if Mickie James beating Jordynne Grace is the right move because I don't think it is.
Go ahead, Anthony.
But I do say Jordynne Grace is winning.
Okay, I like it.
The one thing I disagree, Cobe, I think, as far as the Josh Alexander, everyone knew, I don't really think so, because when Ethan Page left for AEW, a lot of people wrote Josh off. Went, his tag partner left, so he's done. Now, Josh completely proved them all wrong with his run in the X Division and, of course, now with the world title. But like Mickie, when you look at her, she's had 10 world titles as a women's champion between WWE and Impact. That's impressive, because that's more titles than Trish had.
Right.
She's had a longer career than Trish. Trish got the accolades.
Yeah.
More than Lita.
Absolutely. More than almost anybody but Charlotte, right?
Well, yeah. That's the thing, because the title has changed hands so mmany times with different things. But if you look at it, like the women from her era when she came in, Trish, I think she has the most women's reigns and the longest career out of anybody in that era when she came in, with Victoria and Trish and Lita and Jazz and Jacqueline and all that. Mm-hmm. I believe she has the most reigns and the longest career. I think.
And another thing I would add to, especially off that and what Kobe said earlier, it's funny how this kind of happens, not just in wrestling, but all sports. Right. Mickie James has been very active the last few years wrestling, even since, including the Rumble appearance. We didn't start talking about this until it felt like she could go away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
we don't do that in sport, right? There's something to that. All of a sudden, wait a minute, we're about to lose Mickie James.
She's
10-time champion. She's this. She's it is the one thing I really appreciate about the storyline, whether she wins or loses against Jordan tonight, is it did feel even. And I know earlier we had mentioned or whatever, like sometimes Impact's better than the other two. People are watching Impact now because of that storyline more than they were before, I think. And not only that, we got to give Mickie her flowers while she's still active. She's still going to be involved in the wrestling industry. We see her on SiriusXM. We hear her talk. She's great, but totally deserves it. In win or lose tonight, Mickie James is an absolute first ballot Hall of Fame legend, no brainer.
Oh, absolutely.
As good as they come, trailblazer, trendsetter, complete legend. And I think, and not to cut you guys off, I know we could talk Impact till the beginning of the show, but I think we ought to end the show like that. Because we're all in agreement. Mickie James, whether it's the end or not tonight, good luck and thank you for everything.
Yeah,
I want to say
one last thing, Clark.
Yeah.
How insane of a year 2022 was. One of the first major stories of 2022 was that Mickie James, the reigning Impact Knockout champion, was going to be in the Rumble. She came out with the title.
Yep.
With the music.
Yeah.
And because of how insane that year was, it was easily forgotten.
It's under the rug.
New Japan and AEW opened the Forbidden Door. Mickie James kicked it down.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And that's the best way I could sum that one up is there, you can never take that away from her. And it tickles me that she was the one that not only got, but earned that opportunity and got that experience, because
well deserved.
I thought it was amazing and it was well deserved. And even like that, I had heard her on air mention that she was number 20 in the Rumble and it was the 20-year anniversary of TNA Impact. So cool. The whole thing. Like
there were so many great tie-ins with that. And the fact that they let her come out with the belt, which was the right move. None of us knew if she was going to come out with it. I remember anticipating her thing. I'm going, all right. When I heard the music, I'm like, all right, they lay the music.
And then the belt.
With the belt, it's a phenomenal visual. Of
complete game changer.
Out. No one's ever done that.
Never. Maybe never again. Maybe never again. I never say never, but right.
But I mean, coming in with another company's major title around your waist into the Rumble was a hell of a visual.
For sure. And I totally agree. But either way, also now we've gone way over time and that's not a problem. I hope you guys enjoyed the extra time. And again, shout out Mickie James. Thank you for everything. Match is going to be great tonight. Tune in for Impact. Tune in for SmackDown. Tune in for all of that. And especially same time, same place tomorrow. Noon. Republic. Daily broadcast, Wrestling Republic daily broadcast. I believe we got some of the same crew, some other people on the show. It's gonna be great. I'll be here. I'll tell you that much. We'll see you in 23 hours from now. Thanks so much.